Russia and Ukraine are gearing up for a major battle in the south. Ukrainian forces are trying to retake Kherson, the first city to fall in the war. NBC News correspondent Josh Letterman is live in Kyiv. Josh, good to see you. So the Ukrainian military says both countries appear to be massing forces alongside the same battlefront. What can you tell us about that?
Well, for weeks we've been focusing on the battle in the east, in the Donbass, in those areas that are heavily Russian-speaking, where Russia has made such gains. But now the battle is really focusing to the south, and it's going in both directions in what is a real worrying sign for the civilians who live in that region. So Ukraine's military has signaled publicly that it hopes to retake in a counteroffensive the area of Kherson, which was the first city to fall to Russia during this war, and really the only regional capital to fall. They want to claim that territory back before we get into the winter so that this cannot harden into a conflict where Russia maintains control of that area long term, is able to really pull it in its direction by issuing passports to people who live there and imposing the ruble as the currency. But at the exact same time, the Russians, they are fortifying their defenses in that same region, sending more of their troops farther down south as they continue to try to make their way west towards the area of Odessa, that key port that we've been talking about as we focused on that grain deal to export grain once again. So you see the Ukrainians trying to move east, reclaim territory just at the same time that Russia is trying to expand to the west, and that is setting the stage for some very significant battle as we get into the next coming weeks.
And Josh, beyond the military movements, I want to ask about the movement of people. There's a disturbing stat now from the UN which says more than a third of Ukrainians have been forced from their homes since the start of the war. So what kind of displacement, what's the impact of that, and what's the scope?
It's a huge impact. It's a huge brain drain, and it really falls into two groups of people. There's a little over 6 million people in Ukraine who have had to leave the country. They're in Poland, Hungary, Romania, or somewhere else, perhaps in Europe, according to the UN High Commissioner on Refugees. But then there's about another 6 million that are still in Ukraine, but have had to leave their homes to go somewhere safer, somewhere like here in Kyiv. And so those are internally displaced people. And I spoke today with Oleksiy Goncharenko, who is a member of parliament from the Odessa region. He is also on the Council of Europe's Parliamentary Assembly for Migration, and he told me about the important distinction between Ukrainian refugees who are still in the country and those who have left for another country. Take a listen.
Definitely, it's even hard to imagine, so many people left their homes. What is important, we prefer to call these people internally and externally displaced people, because unlike refugees in the classical understanding, they want to come back home. They want to come back to their houses.
And that really is the key That's really the key distinction when you look at conflicts like Afghanistan, some of the refugees who have left from South America who want to start a new life in a new place. Most of these Ukrainian refugees, they're leaving because of war, but they want to come back as soon as possible. And a key reason, Zinkley, is there is a law right now that says that men of a certain age cannot leave this country in case they are needed on the battlefield, which means so many of the mothers, wives, children who have left this country, they still have husbands, fathers, brothers, and sons who are back in Ukraine that they hope to be able to come back to just as soon as it is safe to go back to their homes. Zinkley.
So many families separated there. Josh Letterman, thank you for keeping us posted in Kyiv.